Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. What will happen when Lytuna's ex-husband takes her to court, demanding custody of Henry? Can Alex protect her in front of the law, and even against his own mother's will? Between love and fear, past and present, which path will Lytuna choose? Stay with us until the end to uncover the answer. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 1,000 followers. Your support keeps these emotional stories alive. Will love be strong enough to win this battle? The morning unfolded in quiet rhythms, the kind that seemed fragile enough to shatter at the faintest sound. Lytuna moved softly across the small home, her steps careful not to disturb Henry, who lay asleep, his breath rising and falling like a lullaby tied to her heart. The sun leaked through the wooden shutters, casting lines of light across her face, lines that spoke of both tenderness and burden. She bent down to check on the baby one last time, her palm brushing the softness of his hair. As if she feared this fleeting peace would slip away, the clucking of chickens outside reminded her of duties waiting, of markets and trade, of survival. She whispered almost apologetically, "You stay safe, my little one. I will take you to Mrs. Tang soon." But before the day could steady itself, her phone vibrated. John's name appeared, his voice on the other end urgent, almost breathless. The words were simple, an invitation, a demand, a plea for a meeting. Yet the weight in his tone unsettled her. She agreed quickly, more from instinct than clarity, then lingered in silence after the call ended. What could be so pressing, she thought, staring at Henry as though he might vanish if she turned away. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. For a moment, she wondered if her life would ever stop balancing between worry and responsibility, between being a mother and being a woman with choices of her own. As she prepared to leave, a flicker of unease pressed against her chest, like the faint rustle of a storm gathering beyond the horizon. The cafe smelled faintly of roasted beans and rain-soaked wood, though outside the sun still pressed heavily against the glass. Alex stepped inside, scanning the room until the waiter nodded toward the stairs. "He's upstairs, waitin'," the voice confirmed. John rose as Alex approached, a trace of relief etched into his expression. A cup of coffee already rested on the table, steam curling upward like unfinished sentences. "I've ordered for you," John said, the weight in his tone belying his attempt at casual politeness. Their conversation began with pleasantries but quickly shifted. John leaned forward, his words clipped with urgency. 30,000 grapefruits, early harvest, destined for foreign shelves. The number hung in the air, ambitious and daunting. Alex listened, his gaze steady, his silence carrying more meaning than rebuttal. Finally, he spoke. Calm, deliberate, yet firm, quality before haste. 10 more days, he said. Only then will the fruit bear the sweetness worthy of crossing borders. The table fell into stillness, the tension humming between commerce and trust, profit and patience. John frowned, drumming his fingers against porcelain, but beneath his restlessness was a glimmer of respect. He knew Alex's caution wasn't hesitation, but integrity. Slowly, the edges of his resolve softened. "Then, let me call my customers again," he conceded, voice heavy with reluctant acceptance. The contract papers soon appeared, their crispness cutting through the uncertain air. Friendship and business braided together in ink, binding promises to both profit and loyalty. As their signatures dried, Alex leaned back, the weight on his shoulders momentarily eased. Yet, in the quiet between them, he felt the faint reminder that even in agreements, storms could linger unseen. The afternoon sun fell softer as Alex led John and his secretary through the orchard, where rows of grapefruit trees stretched like silent witnesses to years of labor. The air smelled faintly of soil and ripening fruit, a perfume both humble and proud. Birds darted between branches, as if weaving unseen threads across the wide expanse. Alex stopped beside a tree heavy with pale green globes, their skins glistening under the light. He reached up, plucked one, and held it out like an offering. "They look ready," John murmured, though his voice carried the hesitance of a man unsure of what perfection should feel like. With a swift cut, Alex peeled back the rind, revealing segments not yet flushed with their fullest color. The secretary leaned closer, explaining softly about timing, about patience, about sweetness that comes only with waiting. John bit into the sample, tasting both promise and incompletion. Juice enough to refresh, but not enough to linger. Alex's words settled like stones on calm water. Quality first. If we hurry, we lose everything. His gaze swept the orchard, but his meaning reached further, toward reputation, toward trust, toward futures not yet written. John exhaled slowly, a small smile flickering. In that orchard, beneath the golden haze of day's decline, he felt a strange kinship, not only with Alex but with the land itself. Its quiet insistence that time must be honored, that roots must be trusted. The contract they had signed earlier now seemed more than ink on paper. It was an unspoken vow, whispered through leaves and branches, that patience would yield fruit richer than any hurried bargain. The heat of the day pressed against the old woman's skin as she sat alone, her breath heavy with bitterness. The cicadas shrieked in the distance, their chorus like a reminder of time slipping away. She wiped the sweat from her brow, but her anger burned hotter than the sun itself. "My grandson," she muttered, the words carrying both longing and accusation. To her, Henry was not just a child, he was the last thread binding her to her son, Huang An, now caged in the prison walls. And in her mind, it was all Tuna's fault. She walked to the small house, its door shut tight, silence pressing from within. She knocked, called Tuna's name, waited. No answer. The wooden walls seemed to mock her patience. Did she run away with him? Suspicion gnawed at her, clawing deeper with each passing minute. The old woman sank down by the steps, her shadow stretching long across the ground. Flies buzzed around, restless, echoing her own agitation. She whispered to herself, voice trembling between weakness and resolve. If words cannot soften her, force will. The threat lingered in the still air, as sharp as a blade unsheathed. When the house remained silent, she rose at last, her figure bent yet unyielding. "I'll come back," she vowed, the determination in her eyes hardened by years of pride and grief. The path beneath her feet cracked with dryness, mirroring the fissures that ran deep inside her heart. What began as longing had grown into obsession, and obsession, she knew, would not be quenched until Henry was back in her arms. The news arrived not with thunder, but with the slow heaviness of a cloud pressing down. A letter sealed in official ink, its words sharp as knives. Huang An, her former husband, had filed a lawsuit. He sought custody of Henry. Tuna's hands trembled as she held the papers, her breath breaking in shallow fragments. The world around her blurred. The small wooden table, the half-peeled fruit, even the soft murmur of Henry's sleep. Everything dissolved into the single fear that she might lose him, her son, her lifeline, the only pure light left after a marriage scarred by betrayal. She sank into the chair, clutching the letter as though pressing it tighter might erase its meaning. Shadows lengthened across the room, and in those shadows she saw images of courtrooms, judges, and cold decisions that did not know the warmth of a mother's embrace. Tears welled but refused to fall, hovering in silence, like grief too proud to show itself. The memory of Huang An's anger haunted her, his voice from the past colliding with the harshness of the present. And behind him, she imagined the figure of her former mother-in-law, relentless and waiting, pushing this battle forward from the shadows. Lytuna bent over Henry's crib, watching his small chest rise and fall. She traced the outline of his hand with her finger, whispering without sound, "I won't let them take you." Yet, even as she vowed it, doubt gnawed at her, leaving her caught between defiance and despair. In the silence, the night grew heavier, pressing its weight upon her fragile resolve. The evening descended gently, carrying with it the scent of simmering rice and smoke curling upward from the small kitchen hearth. Alex stepped into the modest home, his presence filling the quiet with the steadiness Lytuna had longed for. He spoke of a contract signed, of orchards and promises sealed in ink, a future expanding, hopeful. Yet as his words flowed, his eyes caught the fragile tremor in hers. She set the bowl down slowly, unable to mask the weight pressing on her shoulders. The lawsuit. Those pages that threatened to tear Henry from her arms spilled from her lips like shards of glass. Her voice cracked, heavy with both fear and shame. "He wants to take my child," she whispered, as though saying it aloud made the danger more real. Alex's face stilled, his hand reaching across the table to hold hers. His grip was firm, anchoring her in the moment. "Then we will fight," he said, not as comfort but as conviction. His gaze did not waver, as though he were already standing before the court, shielding her from judgment. Lytuna's tears finally fell, silent, tracing lines down her cheeks. She feared not only the trial, but the unseen disapproval of his mother, a shadow that lingered between them. Yet Alex's presence cut through that shadow. "You are not alone," he told her, voice low, steady. "Henry is your heart. And if you must protect him in court, I will stand there with you." The room filled with quiet resolve. Two souls, fragile yet unyielding, sat together, their silence no longer fear but a pact unspoken. Night pressed gently against the windows, the orchard outside dissolving into silhouettes. In the dim glow of a single lamp, Lytuna bathed Henry, the steam rising like a veil between them and the rest of the world. The child's laughter echoed softly, a fragile reminder of innocence untouched by the storms gathering beyond the walls. Alex stood nearby, silent, watching. His hands were still, yet his heart raged with unspoken promises. He saw in Lytuna's careful gestures both love and fear, the way she cradled Henry as though every moment might be the last. And in that silence, he understood that the coming trial was not just about law, but about survival of love itself. He stepped closer, the floor creaking under his weight, and whispered words not meant to be heard by anyone but the shadows. "Even if it is my own mother who stands against us, I will not let you fall." Even if the court speaks harshly, I will fight until your voice is heard. His vow was not thunderous, it was steady, like roots gripping earth before a storm. Lytuna turned, her eyes glistening in the half-light, and for a moment, fear yielded to a fragile hope. They did not speak further. The room was filled only with the rhythm of water dripping from Henry's hair, the quiet testimony of their shared resolve. Outside, the night deepened, carrying their vow into the stillness. Some battles are fought with words, others with silence, but the most enduring are fought with love that refuses to surrender.
Tử Na một mình chăm sóc bé Henry, gửi cho bà Tăng mưu sinh, trong khi đó Alex bận rộn thương vụ bụi với John, giữ vững nguyên tắc chất lượng trên hết và ký hợp đồng đầu tiên. Nhưng bóng tối ập đến khi mẹ chồng cũ đầy hận thù quyết định giành lại cháu nội chồng cũ. Hòn Anh bất ngờ kiện ra tòa đòi quyền nuôi con. Tin dữ khiến Tử Na suy sụp, lo sợ mất Henry, đứa con là cả thế giới của cô. Alex xuất hiện đem lại chỗ dựa vững chắc, hứa sẽ cùng cô chiến đấu ra tòa và trước cả gia đình. Giữa tình yêu, nỗi sợ, định kiến, câu chuyện khép lại bằng lời thề thầm lặng bảo vệ Henry bằng mọi giá.